Appraisals are a big gamble in the transaction. Very often it depends on the personal opinion of the appraiser. Let's talk about appraisals, which are equally important for both buyers and sellers, and you shouldn't be scared of them. Usually, when there is an appraisal involved in the transaction, as opposed to transactions that we had in 2021, 2022, even in 2023, where buyers from the get-go were actually waiving the appraisal, meaning that if the property didn't appraise at the purchase price, they were raising their hand at the beginning of the transaction and saying, oh, we're going to cover any kind of difference in the appraisal gap if the property doesn't appraise. But this market is kind of a little bit different. Don't get me wrong. It's starting to get really, really hot and people are overpaying above asking price, waiving appraisals, waiving inspections. However, I had a few listings put up on the market before the holiday started and people were preoccupied with holidays. However, we got offers, we got them on the contract, and now we're doing appraisals. So only last week I received a text message from the buyer's agent on one of my listings saying that the appraiser had contacted her saying that probably the property is not going to appraise at the purchase price, which is terrible news. But immediately I picked up the phone and I called the appraiser to discuss why I think the property should appraise. And guys, you have to remember one thing. The most important thing about appraisals is the fact that an appraisal is a personal opinion of an appraiser, meaning they have to gather all the information. They take into consideration all the comps, comparable sales in the area, and they have like a template. So let's say there are two homes, identical homes. One home has a beautiful swimming pool in the back and the other one, it doesn't have a swimming pool. So what they do in layman terms, the appraisers, they actually compare those two homes, and for the home that doesn't have a swimming pool, they deduct, let's say, $25,000-$30,000. And that's how they compare homes. Like it happens in real life, some appraisers are more lenient towards giving more points for certain things, like for example, for a swimming pool I just mentioned, and some of them are very, very strict. So last year I had a home that was completely renovated. It was remodeled from top to bottom, European finishes, beautiful. And all the comps in the area, I'm talking about sold homes, were $100,000 or $150,000 less than the listing that I put on the market. So when you looked at that house in the appraiser's eyes, it was like, oh my goodness, what is she doing? It's not worth this and this amount of money. However, that appraiser took into consideration the fact that the house was completely remodeled, and he took into consideration the fact that we're in a very, very hot seller's market at that point. So now we have a very similar situation in the house I just told you about, the agent who called me, and I talked to this appraiser for about 40 minutes. We were talking about all the specific points, all the specific characteristics of the home. And he's like, okay, maybe we can add a few $1,000s for this or that. Brand new roof, brand new siding, brand new whatever. Everything is brand new in the house. However, he said, we cannot skip over the fact that the property is on the main road, that the property backs to train tracks, although that train behind the property, it only comes once a week. But this appraiser was not so lenient. But also what helped us with that house last year was the fact that we had 5 or 6 offers and all of them were above asking price or at purchase price. So that we also showed that to the appraiser. So we showed him that there were buyers who were willing and ready and able to pay that amount of money for that house. He actually appraised it even $10,000 above purchase price, which was mind-blowing. But with this situation right now, we're not in the swing of things yet. We are getting there. It is a little bit different. So I'm very curious what this house is going to appraise at, but you can always question the appraiser. You can look for the comps. We usually look for comps ourselves. Not all appraisers are going to be talking to you. Some of them are like, no, I have made my mind. But some of them are very good at communicating their doubts about appraising the house at the purchase price, for example. So I'm very lucky in this case. We'll see what he appraises the house at. And even if he doesn't, still, we have an option to ask the buyers to come up with the extra money, so-called appraisal gap between, let's say the house's purchase price is $600,000 and the house appraises at $550,000. They can come up with extra $50,000 to cover the gap, or the seller can come down, or another scenario that might happen is the buyer can come up and the seller might get down a little bit, let's say 25 each, and that's when we'll arrive at the $575 purchase price. Also, I have another listing that got just appraised. I was in shock because we overpriced it a little bit because, again, everything inside was renovated. However, renovation doesn't always justify the lot higher price than the comps in the area. However, in this case, it was another bank. An appraiser came, and he actually appraised it much higher than the purchase price. So you never know. Appraisals are a big gamble in the transaction. Very often it depends on the personal opinion of the appraiser. Some of them are more lenient than the others, but sometimes you can talk to them and you can give them your point of view as a real estate agent. So maybe they can look at the house in a different way. Also, what's important here is to know that your agent, even if you are a listing agent and actually the appraiser works for the buyer's bank, right? You can reach out to them, you can have a civil conversation with them, and very often it happens that they will come up with extra few $1,000s because you convince them to do it. You have to have legal and fair arguments to do it. So that's why it's important to have an agent who is on your side when you're representing sellers. It's equally important to talk to the appraiser if the property doesn't appraise. If you're on the buyer's side, the communication is even easier because, like I said, the appraiser works for the buyer's bank.